I should have told my son the camera was working again, but when I finally checked the footage, I froze. That line has lived inside my chest for weeks now, rattling around like a loose coin in an empty drawer. Even now, when I close my eyes, I can see the little red blinking light on the camera in the hallway, steady, patient, almost innocent, while everything inside me was falling apart. It started with something simple, almost too simple. A feeling. You know that strange heaviness in the air when something in your home shifts, not physically, but emotionally? When someone's footsteps sound different, or the way a door closes feels colder, like the warmth that once lived inside has been quietly replaced by something else? That's how it began for me. But before any of that, before the camera, before the shock, life in my house was ordinary. Warm, predictable. Safe. Or so I believed. My son, Hamza, had moved back in with me 6 months earlier after losing his job. 28 years old, tall, gentle, polite, but lately carrying the weight of someone twice his age. He used to whistle when he walked through the house, usually the same off-key tune he'd hummed since he was little. Now he walked quietly. Too quietly. Still, having him home brought a kind of comfort I hadn't realized I missed. The sound of another pair of shoes at the door. A mug left on the counter. The bathroom light accidentally left on. Little annoyances that felt like blessings. We were adjusting, slowly. Every morning, I'd stand in the kitchen, barefoot on the cool tile, making parathas while the kettle hissed behind me. He'd come in half asleep, ruffling his hair, mumbling morning, Ammy, in a voice that reminded me he wasn't a boy anymore, but he wasn't quite a man steadfast on his path either. But he was trying. And I wanted so badly to believe things were getting better. The house itself was quiet, a 3-bedroom place in a neighborhood where the same uncles walked the same dogs every morning at the same time. My late husband, God rest his soul, had installed the home cameras after a break-in years ago. They were old, outdated, and after he passed, they sat unused. Dusty. Forgotten. At least, until one night 2 months ago when a neighbor complained about teenagers trying car handles on the street. So I fixed the cameras. Or rather, I got them fixed. A young electrician came, cleaned them, rewired them, and said, "They're working perfectly now, Baji. Just check the app to see the recordings." I remember nodding, thanking him, slipping him an extra 500 rupees because he reminded me of my nephew. I should have told Hamza. It wasn't like I was hiding anything. It simply slipped my mind. He was out that day, and when he came home late, tired and distracted, I didn't think to mention it. One forgotten sentence. One tiny choice. And because of it, everything else that followed, every truth, every lie, every fracture in our home, all of it spilled out in a way I could never have prepared for. But back then, I was still living in the illusion of normal. After dinner, he'd retreat to his room. Sometimes I'd hear him pacing. Sometimes talking softly. Sometimes, nothing at all. That troubled me more than anything, the silence. Yet I kept telling myself. He's stressed. He's rebuilding. Give him time. A mother's hope can be blinding. It was 2 weeks after the camera was repaired when I noticed the first odd thing, a small detail, the kind of thing you dismiss at first. But in hindsight, it was the first crack in the wall. And it should have warned me. But it didn't. Not yet. The first clue was so small, so ordinary, that I almost laughed at myself for even noticing it. It was a Thursday afternoon. The kind of slow, warm day where the sunlight sits lazily on the furniture and the house smells faintly of cumin and fabric softener. I'd spent the morning cleaning, humming to myself, trying to create a bit of the peace I felt slipping away lately. When I reached Hamza's door to leave a folded stack of fresh laundry, I heard something. A thud. Soft, then silence. Not alarming, just out of rhythm. Like something fell. Or was shoved. Hamza? I called gently. No answer. I hesitated. I've always believed grown children deserve privacy. But something in the quiet made me reach for the doorknob. It was unlocked. Inside, his bed was unmade, normal. His laptop open, also normal. But the thing that caught my attention was the open drawer in his dresser. The one he always kept closed. And inside it, peeking out from beneath a stack of t-shirts, was an envelope. Bright yellow. The kind courier services use. I saw it for only 2 seconds before I closed the drawer again. My heart picked up a strange rhythm as I backed out of the room, telling myself, "Not your business. He's an adult. Don't pry." But mothers feel things. Even when the evidence is buried under cotton shirts and forced smiles. Later that evening, Hamza came home late, his eyes tired, his clothes smelling faintly of outside air and someone else's perfume. A floral one. Sweet, artificial. I was washing dishes when he walked into the kitchen. He kissed my head lightly, a habit he hadn't dropped, but his movements were rushed. "You ate?" he asked. "Yes," I said, watching him carefully. He kept avoiding my eyes. "Everything okay?" I asked. He nodded too quickly. "Just a long day." His phone vibrated then. A single buzz. He glanced at it, and his entire body stiffened for a fraction of a second. Something flashed through his face. Panic? Guilt? Fear? Before he looked up and forced a smile. "I'm going to shower." He left his phone on the counter. I didn't touch it. Didn't even move closer. I'm not that kind of mother. I believe trust is a fragile thing, and once broken, it doesn't mend easily. But the phone lighting up again on its own, screen glowing, vibrating, revealing the name Sarah Redhart, stuck with me long after he vanished into the hall. He'd told me he wasn't seeing anyone. He'd told me he was focused on getting his life back together. He'd told me he needed time, space, understanding. So why the secrecy? Why the sudden distance? Why the envelope in the drawer? Why the perfume on his clothes? Still, I said nothing. After all, young men have private lives, right? They don't share everything with their mothers. They shouldn't have to. But the feeling, a quiet, unsettling heaviness, lingered like a shadow beside me. That night, when he fell asleep, I heard him talking softly through the thin wall between our rooms. "I'll figure it out, don't worry, just a little longer." A pause. Then. "No, she doesn't know." The pronoun sliced through me sharper than any name could have. She. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, my mind scattering in a dozen directions. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He wasn't. He couldn't be. He was my son. But the truth has a way of growing roots long before it flowers. And the very next morning, the truth took its first step toward me. Because that was the morning I remembered the hallway camera. The camera I never told him was back on. The memory hit me like a cold gust of wind, the hallway camera. Fixed. Blinking. Recording. And I had forgotten to tell him. I told myself, at first, it didn't matter. It's just a camera. I'm not going to spy on him. He's my son. But a nagging curiosity, that quiet, insistent whisper in the back of my mind, would not let me rest. By mid-morning, the house was empty. Hamza had gone out, work, errands, I wasn't sure, and the silence was a heavy blanket. I poured myself a cup of chai, sat on the edge of the couch, and finally opened the app on my phone. The feed was live. Red light blinking. Everything seemed normal at first, the living room, the hallway, the stairs leading up to his room. The house smelled faintly of burnt toast. I'd tried to make breakfast, but the pan scorched just a little. The kettle hissed in the background, a reminder of ordinary life. But then, the feed shifted to the hallway. And there he was. Hamza. Or someone who looked like him. I froze. He wasn't alone. A woman, tall, slim, with hair the color of caramel, followed him into the hallway. My chest tightened. My breath caught. I didn't hear voices at first. Only footsteps. Only the sound of keys dropping into a bowl on the counter. But the way they moved together, the way he reached for her hand, the softness in his touch, it was intimate. Too intimate. I swallowed hard, trying to steady myself. Maybe it's innocent. Maybe she's a friend. But then, they leaned into each other. A kiss. Quick, but deliberate. The kind of kiss that makes your stomach sink. I felt something break inside me. Not anger. Not betrayal, not yet. Something heavier. A mix of disbelief and fear. And that same small, yellow envelope from his drawer flashed in my mind. I sat there for what felt like hours, watching them move through the house as if they owned it, as if I wasn't even there. My fingers trembled around the phone. My heart beat like a drum in my chest, loud enough that I feared it would give me away. And then, he paused. Looked around. I swear I could feel him sensing something, the house, the absence of his mother, the tiny camera silently recording every movement. But he didn't know. Not yet. I turned off the feed, shaking. I told myself, don't jump to conclusions. Maybe there's an explanation. Maybe it's nothing. But deep down, I knew there wasn't. That night, I couldn't eat. The scent of the food in the kitchen, even my favorite spices, turned sour in my mouth. I kept replaying the footage in my mind, every detail burned in sharp relief. The way she smiled at him. The way he reached out instinctively. The way they didn't notice the world around them. And then the quiet thought arrived. If he can do this when he thinks I'm not watching, what else is he hiding? I waited for him to come home. I heard the sound of the door unlocking, the soft scuff of his shoes on the tile, the faint jingle of his keys. He called out, "Amy? I'm home." I didn't answer. My voice felt trapped somewhere deep inside, heavy and useless. When he walked into the living room, I could see the tension in his shoulders. I could smell the faint perfume lingering on him. He looked at me, confused, perhaps sensing the change in my demeanor. I smiled, forcing calm. "Dinner will be ready soon," I said softly, trying to mask the storm inside me. But the truth, once glimpsed, refuses to be ignored. And I knew, deep in my bones, that the next step, the confrontation, the questions, the unraveling, was unavoidable. I waited until Hamza went to bed, pretending to read a book in the living room. My hands shook as I scrolled back through the footage, frame by frame, trying to convince myself I had misread it. But the truth was undeniable. There they were again, in the hallway, laughing softly, leaning too close, whispering words meant only for each other. My son, the boy who used to fall asleep with his toys scattered across the floor, now sharing secrets with someone I didn't know, someone I couldn't place. The next morning, I tried to breathe normally, to act as if nothing had happened. I prepared his breakfast, placed it on the table, and watched him eat without a word. Every gesture, every forkful, every sip of chai seemed tainted by the knowledge I carried. I couldn't ignore it any longer. I had to confront him. "Hamza," I said, my voice quieter than I intended, "can we talk?" He froze mid-bite. His fork hovered over the plate, trembling slightly. "Sure, Amy," he said. His tone was careful, cautious. Too careful. I gestured for him to sit beside me. I saw something, I began, struggling for the right words, on the camera. The one in the hallway. His eyes flickered. Quick. A hesitation that said more than any words could. He started, then stopped. I took a deep breath, feeling my chest tighten. "I saw you, with her." The woman. Hamza. The air seemed to grow thicker, heavier, until I could almost taste it. His hand shook slightly as he set down his fork. He avoided my gaze, staring at the table instead. Amy, he said softly, I didn't mean for you to find out like this. Then tell me, I demanded, my voice rising just enough to betray the fear under it. Who is she? Why didn't you tell me? We live in the same house, Hamza. I'm your mother. His shoulders sagged, and for a moment, he looked like the boy I had raised. The same gentle, hesitant boy who used to sneak cookies when he thought I wasn't watching. But the moment passed. She's someone I've been seeing for a while, he admitted, voice barely above a whisper. I didn't tell you because I didn't know how. I was trying to figure things out. I didn't want to hurt you. My stomach twisted. Hurt. The way he spoke, it sounded like guilt, not malice. And yet, I couldn't shake the sting of betrayal. Not the woman, not the affair, the secrecy, the hiding, the feeling that I had been left out of his life entirely. Hamza, you live here. You were lying to me every day. You were sneaking around, whispering, hiding envelopes in drawers. Do you understand what that feels like? My voice cracked. I didn't mean for it to, but the weight of weeks of suspicion and fear spilled out all at once. He flinched, and for the first time, I noticed the tears threatening to spill in his eyes. I didn't know how to stop it, Amy. I didn't know how to tell you. And I didn't want to disappoint you. I shook my head, the bitter taste of betrayal heavy on my tongue. Hamza, disappointment isn't the problem. It's the secrecy. Trust. You've broken it. You didn't just hide your relationship, you hid yourself from me. He looked at me, finally meeting my eyes. The vulnerability there was almost unbearable. I know, Amy. I know I was wrong. I didn't want to lose your love. And there it was. That raw, human truth. A boy, grown but still learning, afraid of losing his mother. I didn't answer immediately. I let him sit there, feeling the gravity of his mistake, the weight of my own hurt. The kitchen smelled faintly of burnt toast and chai, ordinary and comforting, but my heart felt fractured. We sat in silence for what felt like hours, each of us carrying our own truths, our own shame, our own love tangled together in an impossible knot. And as I finally stood up, a thought struck me. This wasn't just about betrayal. It was about understanding. About boundaries. About the way love sometimes requires patience, even when your heart is breaking. I didn't know how to respond. The kitchen felt too small, the air too thick. I could smell the faint perfume on his jacket, lingering from last night, a reminder of what I'd seen. My hands trembled slightly as I wiped them on my apron, trying to steady myself. Hamza, I said finally, my voice quiet but firm, I need you to understand something. This isn't about controlling you. It's about honesty. About respect. About us, mother and son. If you can't tell me the truth, then, I stopped, unsure how to finish the sentence without breaking down completely. He lowered his gaze, voice barely audible. I know, Amy. I know I've hurt you. I didn't want to. I thought keeping it secret was protecting you, but I was wrong. I took a deep breath and forced myself to look him in the eyes. Secrets only grow, Hamza. And they have a way of turning small cracks into cliffs you can't climb back from. I need to know, can I trust you from now on? The way he hesitated made my heart tighten. But then he nodded. Yes, Amy. I promise. No more lies. I wanted to believe him. I needed to. But trust, once broken, isn't something you can rebuild overnight. I needed to take action, not as punishment, but as a way to understand the truth fully, to protect myself and our relationship from further deception. So I made a decision. I would watch the camera footage carefully, not to spy for malice, but to see the reality I had avoided. I needed to know the full story, every interaction, every detail, before I confronted the situation further. Over the next few days, I sat in silence in my living room while Hamza went about his life. The smell of fresh parathas in the morning, the clink of cups on the counter, the soft hum of the ceiling fan overhead, all ordinary sounds, now underscored with tension. Each time I opened the camera feed, my hands shook slightly, and my chest felt tight, like I was bracing for impact. And then I saw it again. The woman. Her laughter, the way she leaned in close to Hamza, the whispered words he didn't want anyone else to hear. My heart sank, but I forced myself to watch, to observe, to understand. What I realized wasn't just about betrayal. It was about patterns. About choices. About the small, quiet lies that add up over time. I saw how he'd been juggling two lives, the life he shared with me and the one he had hidden. The guilt etched on his face in the footage told me he wasn't heartless. He was confused, afraid, human. I decided I wouldn't react in anger. Not yet. Instead, I would confront him with the facts, calmly, and ask for explanations, not accusations. The goal wasn't revenge, it was clarity. When Hamza returned that evening, I met him in the living room. He noticed the calm in my demeanor, the way I'd collected myself. "Amy," he asked, uncertain. "You've been quiet." "Yes," I said, sitting down across from him. Quiet, because I needed to see everything for myself. I needed to understand the truth before I said anything. And now. I do. His eyes widened slightly. I could see the fear, the anticipation, the dread. I continued, soft but unwavering, "We need to talk about what's happening in your life. Honestly, openly. I won't judge you. But I will not tolerate secrecy anymore." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I understand, Amy. I really do." For the first time in weeks, I felt the tension ease slightly. The storm hadn't passed, but at least the first drop of rain had hit the ground, raw, heavy, but necessary. Sometimes, I realized, confronting the truth requires patience, courage, and a willingness to face pain without letting it consume you. And sometimes, the only way to heal is to look directly at the thing you fear most. The next few days were tense, but different. Not explosive, not yet, but heavy with the quiet weight of unspoken truths. I didn't shout. I didn't demand explanations every time he left the house. I simply observed, listened, and waited for him to come to me with honesty. And slowly, he did. One evening, Hamza came home looking worn out, carrying a folder of papers. I could smell the faint scent of the cafe he'd stopped at, strong coffee, cinnamon, the faint tang of chocolate. He placed the folder on the table and sat down, hands trembling slightly. "Amy," he began, voice low, hesitant. "I need to tell you everything. No more hiding. I want you to know the truth." I nodded, signaling him to continue. He unfolded the papers. They were receipts, hotel bills, and messages printed out, a record of the relationship he'd been keeping secret. He took a deep breath, eyes fixed on the table. I didn't plan for this to go so far, he admitted. I thought it would be temporary, just someone to distract me while I figured my life out. But it grew, and I didn't know how to stop it. I listened, my hands clasped tightly in my lap, feeling the tension in my shoulders, the ache in my chest. Every word he spoke cut through me, but I stayed silent. "I know I hurt you," he continued. "I wasn't thinking about how my actions would affect you. I didn't think about us." Tears filled his eyes, and for the first time, I saw raw regret, not excuses. He wasn't asking for forgiveness yet. He wasn't asking me to smile and nod. He was simply acknowledging the truth. And that was enough, for now. I spoke gently, my voice firm but calm. "Hamza, what matters now is that you take responsibility. Not just for me, but for yourself. You can't live two lives at the same time. Secrecy may protect you for a while, but it always comes at a cost. Do you understand?" He nodded, swallowing hard. "Yes, Amy. I understand. I promise, no more lies." I'll fix this. I'll end it properly. I'll set things right. We didn't hug. We didn't cry together. We simply sat, sharing the quiet understanding that comes when truth is finally spoken. Over the next week, the consequences began to unfold publicly. The woman he'd been seeing was a colleague from work, married herself. When Hamza ended the relationship, the news traveled quickly through the office. He faced questions, judgment, and whispers, and he handled it with dignity. No shouting, no drama. Just accountability. At home, the tension eased gradually. Hamza was more present, more open. He shared his daily life with me, asked for advice, even laughed genuinely during dinner, small moments that reminded me of the son I had raised. Neighbors noticed a subtle shift, too. Instead of the quiet whispers that had filled the street when he disappeared unexpectedly, there was now a sense of normalcy. A recognition that mistakes had been made, but they were being addressed responsibly. Through it all, I realized something vital: consequences don't have to be cruel to be effective. Justice isn't about revenge. It's about truth, accountability, and letting the world see that actions have weight. And in that weight, in that clarity, healing can begin. By the end of the week, Hamza and I had reached a fragile understanding. We weren't perfect. We weren't fully healed. But we had honesty. And that was enough to start rebuilding the trust that secrecy had nearly destroyed. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of calm in the house. The smell of cooking, the sound of the kettle, the soft hum of the ceiling fan, ordinary things, ordinary life, felt comforting again. Because sometimes, the truth is what restores normalcy, even after the deepest betrayal. In the days that followed, life began to settle into a new rhythm. It wasn't the old, naive normalcy that had existed before, but a more honest, grounded one built on the fragile scaffolding of truth and accountability. Hamza became more present. He'd come home in the evenings without the furtive glance over his shoulder. He talked openly about his work, shared little frustrations, even asked for advice on decisions he had once kept secret. There was a lightness to him I hadn't seen in months, and while I was still cautious, it warmed me. One morning, as I stood at the stove flipping parathas, I heard him calling from the hallway. "Ami, can you help me with this?" I walked over and found him struggling with a stack of forms for a new project at work. His brow was furrowed, and the lines around his eyes, once hints of stress, were softening. He looked up at me, and for the first time in weeks, there was a smile that wasn't tinged with guilt or fear. I took the papers and started helping him organize them. The small domestic routine, the scent of frying dough, the faint burn of tea on the stovetop, the hum of the ceiling fan above, became a balm for both of us. "I'm sorry, Ami," he said quietly, almost as if testing the words in the air. "For keeping everything from you. For making you feel unsafe in your own home." I shook my head gently. "Hamza, we both learned something. I should have told you about the camera. That simple truth could have prevented a lot of pain. But we're here now, aren't we?" He nodded. "Yes. And I'll never take your trust for granted again." It wasn't a perfect reconciliation. There were still moments when old suspicions crept in, a hesitation in his voice, a lingering glance at his phone, but each time, I reminded myself of the bigger picture. Healing isn't instantaneous. It's cumulative, built through patience, understanding, and the willingness to forgive without forgetting. I also learned to forgive myself. For weeks, I had berated myself for spying, for not mentioning the camera, for feeling betrayed. But the truth is, mothers are human too. We make mistakes, and part of our role is to navigate the consequences with grace. We began spending evenings together again. Simple things, sharing chai, watching a show on the small living room TV, discussing the day's trivialities. I started noticing the subtle ways he tried to show respect, clearing his plate without being asked, offering to help with laundry, asking my opinion on decisions he used to make silently. It reminded me that relationships, like homes, need maintenance. If you neglect them, cracks appear. But if you tend to them patiently, with honesty and care, they can endure. And in the quiet moments, when I watched him laugh or get lost in thought, I felt a sense of peace return. A soft, gentle peace that doesn't erase the past but allows the future to grow. One afternoon, I sat by the window, sipping tea, watching the neighborhood children play. The smell of fresh bread from the bakery down the street mingled with the faint scent of jasmine from my garden. I reflected on everything we had been through, the fear, the betrayal, the confrontation, the healing. Life isn't about avoiding mistakes, it's about learning from them. About holding each other accountable. About understanding that love and trust require effort, patience, and courage. And as I watched Hamza return home, smiling, holding a small packet of sweets for me, a spontaneous gesture, I felt gratitude. Not just for him, but for the journey we had endured together. The cameras, the secrets, the revelations, all painful, all instructive, had led us to a deeper understanding of each other. Sometimes, I realized, the most profound lessons come from the moments that hurt the most. That evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the walls with a soft, amber glow, I sat in the living room watching Hamza move around the house. He was humming a tune he hadn't sung in months, the off-key melody from his childhood, and I felt a warmth rise in my chest. Not the naive warmth of before, but something deeper, earned. I realized then that life isn't about perfection. It's about navigating the messy, unpredictable twists with courage and honesty. The camera, the secrets, the betrayal, all of it had taught me something invaluable. Trust is fragile, but it can be rebuilt with patience. Communication, transparency, and empathy are more than words, they're daily actions that mend hearts and bridge divides. I thought about the moment I first saw the footage, the freeze of shock, the ache of betrayal, the silence that followed. It had felt like the end of something sacred. And yet, here we were, moving forward, slowly but surely, one honest interaction at a time. I glanced around the room, noticing the ordinary details that now felt extraordinary, the faint scent of jasmine from the windowsill, the soft ticking of the wall clock, the gentle hum of the fan above. Each sound, each smell, each gesture of ordinary life was a reminder that healing is possible. That mistakes, when faced with courage, can become lessons rather than scars. And I thought of all the mothers and sons, fathers and daughters, friends and partners, who might be watching this story unfold. We all stumble. We all face moments of doubt, secrecy, or betrayal. But the choice isn't in never making mistakes, it's in how we respond. How we confront the truth, hold each other accountable, and allow love to guide the way forward. So I ask you, quietly, gently, if you found yourself in a situation where trust was broken, would you confront it with patience and honesty, or let silence fester? Because life gives us these moments not to punish us, but to teach us. To remind us that even when the hurt feels unbearable, we have the power to rebuild, to forgive, and to move forward, not as if nothing happened, but stronger, wiser, and more connected than before. And as I watched Hamza sit beside me, offering a shy smile, I realized something profound. Sometimes, the camera doesn't just capture life. It shows you the truth you needed to see all along. Would you have done what I did? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if this story resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe for more stories that touch the heart and remind us of the power of honesty, love, and second chances.